What's up everyone, it's Dakota and welcome back to another Pioneer video, and today we're looking at a channel staple, and I feel like I say that a lot, but we play some pretty off the beaten path decks, at least in terms of, what people consider good for the format and what isn't. So today we're going to be taking a look at Hidden Strings and the new evolution of the deck, because it has some new tricks, which is pretty crazy because the deck has been kind of doing the same thing since Pioneer's inception, just having to change some cards due to like bannings and things like that. So, of course, before we get into it, if you like my content and you want to keep supporting my channel, please consider subscribing and ring a notification bell so you know when videos like this and others go live. I just had a few videos go up this past week looking at the World Championship that was going on this weekend as of the time of this recording, and also some pretty streamlined decks for Modern if you are looking to kind of get into the format, something easy to play to kind of get your feet wet. So any of that stuff interests you, go ahead and check that out after you get done watching this video, of course. And if you want to further support my content, I have a few links in the description down below. You can find the deck list in the description, you can find a link to the Discord server, and you can find the link to my Twitch channel as well. So with all that said, let's go ahead and take a look at Hidden Strings. For the uninitiated, because it has been a while since I went over the deck, and maybe you're just finding this for the first time, hello, hi. The Hidden Strings combo deck is based around the card Lotus Field. It's a land with hexproof that enters the battlefield tapped, and when it enters the battlefield, you sacrifice 2 lands. That seems like a lot of drawbacks. At least, hexproof's a bonus, but, the other two, yikes, that's a pretty steep cost. You essentially kind of like set yourself back in a way. But it taps to add 3 mana of any one color. So it plays kind of like a Gilded Lotus in the way that you can, play this, your opponent really can't interact with it, given the fact that it has hexproof, which can lead to some nutty things we'll get to here in a minute. And you get to add a ton of mana. Really cool. You also get to play a card called Thespian Stage on top of it, which becomes a copy of target land, and the land gains the ability to be able to turn into another copy. So with these 2 cards, you can play a Lotus Field, sack your 2 lands, and then play a Thespian Stage. And at any time, you can turn the Thespian Stage into a Lotus Field. Now, when you copy Lotus Field with Thespian Stage, you do not have to sacrifice the lands, because the card just becomes a copy. It's already on the battlefield. So just something to note. It seems like no way, like that's obviously how it works, but some people, I believe it was pretty confusing. So just to clear that up, copying a Lotus Field with Thespian Stage does not cause you to sacrifice lands. But then you have 2 Lotus Fields in play, which means that all these other cards are about to go completely nuts. So that's the idea. You try to get at least 1 or 2 Lotus Fields into play. We'll kind of get into also why that's probably one of the easier ways to do it. The least amount of ways that your opponent can interact with it, but you do have some options of going off with just 1 Lotus Field, which the deck previously didn't really have that many options to go with. And you play a lot of these cards. So obviously it gets the name Hidden Strings combo from this card Hidden Strings that says you can tap or untap target permanent, and then you may tap or untap another target permanent. So with 2 Lotus Fields in play, you generate 6 mana. You then spend 2 mana, so you have 4 left. To Hidden Strings, you target both of your lands, you untap them. You have 4 mana and another 6 from your lands, which conveniently gives you 10 mana, which will allow you to cast Omniscience. So just straight up off that, 1 Hidden Strings, 2 Lotus Fields, and also technically with a Voyaging Satyr as well, you have enough mana to cast Omniscience, which lets you cast all these other spells for free. Typically, that's how it works. Omniscience is a 1-of for a reason. So we have some more creative ways of going through it. So we want to find this card Hidden Strings. We want to cast it as many times as we can. We want to get our Thespian Stages, going and everything to copy our Lotus Fields. So as we kind of go on, we'll see kind of how the rest of these cards play into that role. So starting off with the creatures, we have a Boiler Grazer. This is going to help you play a Lotus Field on turn 2, or even just putting one into play on turn 2 and getting rid of some lands. So when it enters the battlefield, you put a land card from your hand onto the battlefield tapped. More than likely, you can play something like a Botanical Sanctum on turn 1, put a Otawara, or any one of these other lands in play, hopefully not a Thespian Stage, and God forbid a Lotus Field. So then you have 2 lands in play, so on the next turn you can just play a Lotus Field to sack the 2 lands that you just played. Then you can also play a 2 mana spell to follow it up with, which hopefully will be a Voyaging Satyr, because then you could go off on turn 3. So Voyaging Satyr is easy, 2 mana, 1/2, untaps target land, which is kind of like the caveat we put on to being able to kind of win the game with one Lotus Field, which is pretty interesting because, like I said, the deck really didn't have options like that before. It was playing like Hope Tender, which had the ability to untap up to 2 target lands if you exert it, or you can pay a mana and tap it to untap another one, which was like fine to have like the upside of being able to untap 2 lands. But Voyaging Satyr just offers a little bit more consistency, and the fact that it can just kind of do it on its own because you don't really need to untap up to 2 lands. This just getting untap 1 land and continue to untap on turns is plenty fine. You have Vizier, Tumbling Sands. Rarely ever gets played as a creature. I mean, you could do it to untap another target permanent, as like a way to kind of also go off as like Voyaging Satyr. Except it has the ability to do it for like other permanents and stuff, which could have some niche cases. But mainly you're cycling this. You net a mana from cycling it with the Lotus Field because you had 3 mana. You pay 2, you have one blue left. You cycle the Vizier, and then you get to untap it, and you get to draw a fresh card. Cool, neat, easy. This last card, Leer, Disciple of the Drowned, makes it so spells can't be countered, and each instant sorcery card in your graveyard has flashback, and their flashback is equal to the mana cost, which is going to be important later on. Just stay with me. So some new additions to this deck. And maybe as you're kind of like looking through the deck list, you'll notice that we don't have a way to go to our sideboard, which to those not in the know, like that was kind of the way that Lotus Field would win. It would put its win conditions in the sideboard, and then you had various ways of tutoring cards from your sideboard and playing them in your main deck essentially. So that's where this card like Emergent Ultimatum would come into play, where it allows you to search your library for up to 3 monocolored cards with different names. You exile them. Your opponent chooses one, and that card gets shuffled into your library, and then you cast the others without paying their mana cost, and you have to exile the Emergent Ultimatum as after it resolves and everything. So before, you would go and get cards that would tutor, a bunch of cards that would tutor, maybe some that would untap lands and stuff like that. And so like usual piles would be like Behold the Beyond, which would allow you to discard your hand and search for 3 cards. You would get Omniscience, and then you would get like another spell, like maybe you get like a Pour Over the Pages or like a Hidden Strings, whatever. More than likely a Pour Over the Pages. Your opponent would be very likely to shuffle Omniscience back into the deck, because if they just give you Omniscience and the tutor, then obviously you just get your 3 best spells. You probably get another Emergent Ultimatum, whatever, and just kind of keep going off. So more than likely they would give you a card like Pour Over the Pages and the tutor. You end up tutoring, you draw a bunch of cards, and you can probably cobble together a win from there. And cobble being used very loosely. But now this deck actually wins from the main deck, and its sideboard is an actual sideboard, which is actually an interesting development for a deck like this, because I think usually it starts the other way around. Instead of being, main deck win cards to sideboard, it doesn't usually go sideboard to main deck. So how are we doing that? Well, we have Chandra, Hope's Beacon, which has a neat passive ability that says when you cast an instant sorcery spell, you copy it, choose new targets for the copy. This triggers only once each turn. So you can double up on cards like Pour Over the Pages, which essentially read as draw 3, untap 2 lands, discard a card, and then before the other copy resolves, you can float mana, and then do the same thing, draw 3 cards, untap 2 lands, and then discard a card. Really good. Just getting to look at 6 cards, and just having to discard 2 when it's all said and done, but like in reality, like that's nothing. You just drew 6 cards. That's amazing. It also has the sneaky ability of being this deck's win condition, in kind of not necessarily one of the most creative ways, but it definitely in kind of a fun way, I would say. So here's the setup. We have an Omniscience in play. Probably one of the easiest things to do. I mean, you're going to be able to draw a ton of cards, Pour Over the Pages, Emergent Ultimatums. You're going to get to look at a ton of cards, dig through time. Like, you're going to find this Omniscience eventually. We play a Chandra, Hope's Beacon. We have not activated it yet. We -5 to deal 5 damage to our opponent, and maybe one of the creatures, whatever. And then we cast this card, Balaged Recovery, to return a target card from our graveyard to our hand, casting it for free, to pick up our Chandra, Hope's Beacon, and then do it again. And then we cast another one, and we do it again. In the case that we can't, we don't have, we had to cast like one or two of them to get back maybe a Pour Over the Pages or maybe an Emergent Ultimatum that was countered, a Dark Petition, so on. Leer lets us flash back the Bala Ged Recovery. Now we have to pay mana for it, but chances are we are more than okay with paying that cost to get back the Chandra's Hope Beacon and then deal 5 damage to our opponent. There's also this other win condition where we could play like a Lair of the Hydra, and we can untap it and, you know, make it a ton of mana, make it a 20/20 and hit our opponent. But the main win condition is definitely seems like Chandra Hope's Beacon, and then just rebuying it, dealing damage to our opponent, and just, you know, getting to double up on our spells and everything like that, which is super neat and pretty innovative, honestly, for this deck. Just to find a Planeswalker that actually fits into the role of, you know, forwarding the game plan in a way while also being the win condition and a card that you just want to get anyway, and pretty resilient given the fact that we have virtually 6 Bala Ged recoveries between the 3 actual copies and Leer. Of course, we talked about the sideboard actually being a sideboard. You have like Natural States, Narset Reversal, Perilous Voyage, which has some additional upside of being able to give you some scry if you bounce something with mana value 2 or less. This is like a way to kind of like, it's kind of like a tempo play essentially, you know, for some aggressive decks, you know, help you dig towards getting one of your powerful spells or finding your missing combo piece. As well as like Mystical Dispute for the control decks, Temporary Lockdown for, you know, Pithing Needle, or really like the Rakdos Sack decks, where a lot of their stuff gets hit by Temporary Lockdown. Ritual Soot to kind of clean up the rest of the stuff from the creatures, and another Chandra Hope's Beacon. I'm sure as like a way to kind of like shore up some of the other things. I mean, just having another copy is like totally serviceable if you feel like you need it. So yeah, that is the Hidden Strings combo deck for Pioneer, a new innovation for a deck that kind of like dips in popularity, but then like kind of comes out of nowhere, and I think is a deck that usually benefits pretty highly from people not really expecting it as like a deck, and really people haven't for a while, I feel. So maybe this is a good time to actually pick it up and play it. I know I look forward to playing it on the channel, so if you want to see that, be on the lookout for it this week. And the easiest way to be notified when that video goes up is if you subscribe and ring the notification bell, and you'll get notified when it gets uploaded. Pretty sweet, innovative technology. You know, it's like Hidden Strings and YouTube have like the same, you know, on the same wavelength, I'm sure. But yeah, be sure to subscribe, ring the notification bell, follow the links in the description. You'll find the deck list in the description, as well as Discord and Twitch links. That's going to do it for me in this video. I hope you all enjoyed, and I hope to see you all in the next one.